All right, guys, welcome back to another Big Buck Blueprint. We got Mason from Illinois, Southwest Illinois. Can't give away his location, but he's in that area. He's got a 194-inch monster we're going to talk about today. Can't wait to talk about it and get into it. Mason, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Another beautiful day. Can't complain. The Lord has made. So you live in Southwest Illinois. Talk a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, how old are you, what's going on up there?
So I'm Mason Westerman. I'm 24 and I'm a recreational property designer. So we design hunting properties from start to finish. We do it all. We hang cameras, we clear food plots, plant food plots, design them, everything that you can imagine. We do it.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I do on the daily. It's pretty awesome to be around that full time, and I get exposed to a lot of intelligent people that have been in the game a long time. So I've learned a lot of information from them guys, and I used a lot of that information in order to harvest this buck as well. So huge thanks to them as well.
That's pretty impressive. Dang, man, I didn't know that. And again, I'll let you know, like, I don't know anything about Mason. I just saw his deer on social and was like, I got to cover this thing. I do know you have a YouTube video that you put out of it, so we'll be linking that in. And again, I didn't even watch it. I was on the way here this morning, and I was like, I want to watch that. And then I was like, no, because I want it to be real. I want it to be raw. I want it to be him telling me the story as if I've never seen it, heard it, know anything about it. So, but this is an absolute hammer of a whitetail. Good, awesome. I mean, let's get into it. So tell us a little bit about your place, what you got, how many acres, what you hunting. Is it field? Is it ag? Is it timber? Is it?
So the property I harvested him on is only 40 acres.
Wow. Golly.
Yeah, it's a pretty small tract. It's half timber and then half alfalfa clover mixture. So there's a lot of cattle ground around, and the landowner he just bales it for cattle and sells it and that kind of thing. And yeah, I just hunt it for deer.
That's insane, dude. And we've covered so many stories, and I've heard so many stories of people killing them on, like, yeah, I killed it on a 7-acre tract behind my house. It's just a little old wood lot. And I'm like, how? But that just shows you, and again, with what you manage and what you do for a living, obviously you're doing something right. And I hope we can get into detail about where you set this property up. So 40 acres, half timber, half ag per se. And so how do you have this set up? I mean, is it?
So how the story starts out with this deer is I've been property hopping, basically chasing this deer. Basically from where I first got pictures and found his first set of sheds all the way up to where I killed him, it's 1.5 miles away.
Wow.
So this deer's moved home ranges quite a bit. Initially when he was 3.5, I didn't have pictures, but the neighbor did, and we're good friends and we exchange pictures, that kind of thing. And I was I'm hunting on a different property at this time. And I end up finding sheds to this deer. I'm like, hey, I have no idea who this deer is. You know, he looks like he's a stud. And he's like, oh, I think I got pictures of that deer. And sure enough, he did. He had pictures all year, in velvet, everything. And I had no idea who this deer was.
Yeah.
Well, the following year, that same property, as a 4-year-old, he was all over the place. So this is a property that's probably a 1/2 mile from where I ended up killing him. And hung cameras. I was like, oh, that deer's, he's a stud. Like, he's 4, he's a great deer, but I just think he needs one more.
Yeah.
So I actually I hunted early October and passed him at 30 yards, and I was like, this deer's gonna be too tempting. I'm gonna not hunt this farm so I don't have to hunt him.
Yeah.
And so he's got a safe haven. I around there I coyote hunt a lot, do some thermal hunting as well, and got permission ground to go around and do stuff, and ended up finding his sheds on a neighbor. Had permission to, go shed hunt and everything. Found his sheds over there. So then I just kept going over and over and over. This deer was moving basically straight east. Yeah. He wasn't going north or south. He was going straight east. And, followed him over there, leased the property, got permission, and was hunting him. and it was October 30th of 23. I got an opportunity at him and actually shoulder shot him
No
with my
way.
bow.
Really?
Yep, shoulder shot him. Um, and I was down in the dumps about it. I figured, maybe the coyotes got him or whatever. And sure enough, 2 months later, he came on a scrape, blown a scrape out, and he was back.
You must have
he
hit that shoulder plate. I did that actually not long ago to an 8 point down here in South. But so you hit that shoulder plate and it just ricocheted off, or do you get complete penetration, or what?
So he was kind of slightly quarter in two, and how I was hunting this property is there was bedding to the north of me, and there's an ag field just to the east of me. So I was hunting it with the west wind, kind of giving him a little something if he was checking that bedding.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he was in that bedding with two other bucks, and there was one doe in there. And they all came out pushing that doe, and he was coming right down the field edge, and I rushed the shot and shoulder shot him, and got some penetration, not great. I knew it was straight shoulder when I shot him, and he ended up surviving.
Well, that's good.
And then unfortunately wasn't able to hunt that property again because kind of word got out that I was hunting this deer.
Yeah.
And which that year he went 186. I found his sheds, and so a deer like that gets out, people are hunting him pretty hard. So I was I was just going to try to lease another piece right next to it. Well, sure enough, I was able to do it, and that's how I got this 40-acre piece. And hung up cameras, and I think it was like July 15th, boom, he was there in velvet.
Right.
But what's crazy is he had a giant pus pocket he developed where I shot him the previous year. And over the progression of the summer, it just kept growing. It went from probably the size of a softball, probably all the way to the size of a volleyball.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, I hope this deer makes it. We were, at the time, we're in a 6-week drought. I was like, EHG's hitting. Other farms around the area, we've been finding bucks dead. I'm like, I really hope this deer don't die of EHD. Luckily, there's a farm pond that's close, holds some water. So I think that definitely helped. But yeah, he, over the course from mid-July all the way until I shot him, I had pictures of him, which is extremely rare to have on a 40-acre piece of ground.
For sure, dude. Yeah.
But I think with him having that injury and being 6.5, I think his home range just shrunk that much to where I was able to capitalize on that.
So this 40 acres, though, were you able, since you just got it, I mean, you just got it obviously just this year, right? I mean, so were you able to kind of develop it and make it for what you do for a living? Were you able to put a lot of work into it, or was it just put cameras up, stick a stand in, and try to hunt him? Or
I kind of worked out a deal with the landowner. He didn't really have time to take care of it. So there's these old logging trails and stuff like that. So I went in there with the skid steer and cleaned all that up, and cleaned it up a little bit, and managed it, and did a little bit of invasive removal, stuff like that. And basically I didn't have a whole lot of time because I was starting in July.
mm-hmm.
Nothing was sprayed off for food plots, and there's already alfalfa there, so I wasn't going to really try for food plots because I couldn't put beans or corn in. So more or less just hung cameras, and then kind of developed a plan from there based off of what I knew about him, and kind of what he did the year before.
Right.
Yeah, I absolutely loaded this farm with cameras.
Yeah, I bet.
I had 7 cell cameras on this farm to try to specifically pinpoint this deer, but I can't honestly say that cell cameras is the reason I killed him, because I ended up having 4 daylight encounters with him, and he wasn't on camera once.
Wow.
He didn't walk by one camera. It was pretty remarkable how he ended up avoiding 7 different cell cameras on such a small tract of ground.
Ain't it insane how they do that? And a lot of people, I was just talking the other day about that, how dependent people get on these cell cameras. And just because the deer's not in front of your camera does not mean he's not there or daylighting. I mean, I firmly believe that when a deer hits a age mark, whether it's 5, 6, whatever, and of course you still got them, 10-year-old, 8, 9, 10-year-old deer, an old ancient deer eating out of a corn pile or right in front of your camera working a scrape. But like, I think once they get to that age, it's almost like they're like, no, I'm not getting in front of that camera. I mean, it's
Yep.
crazy. I've had the exact same thing. I have had just the 8 point I was telling you about the other day in South Alabama. I mean, he's a 5-year-old deer of 5 years of history with him, and he's coming in every night. But dude, there's no daytime pictures. And I was sitting there one evening. Here he come. He walked 30 yards behind the trail camera, but obviously he wouldn't have been on camera. But I was so dependent on that camera. I was like, I'm not going to see that deer. There's no way. I was hunting
Yep.
another deer, and here he come to me, and I ended up putting a bad shot. He made it. But anyway, point is, don't depend on the trail cameras because that is not. You
Yep.
can't. I mean, it just shows you right there. That's crazy. So 4 encounters of him during daylight hours. Was that morning, evening?
Yeah. So I had this farm initially set up to where I was. There's a really good pinch point going to and from the neighbors, and I was like, I'm only gonna put 2 stands up, hunt the pinch point, and then based off there, I'm gonna move accordingly. If I
Right.
see him or see what deer, because I hadn't ever hunted this property before, so I didn't know how the deer really kind of moved.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I believe, somewhere around like October 26th. Well, just before that, he had daylighted in the timber, and I had to stand there, and you can actually see my stand in the picture. And I went the next day and hunted him. Never did see him, but I learned some valuable information. My access was wrong. I was leaving, and out in this alfalfa, there's a pretty good bowl there where there's a drainage, and there's like 4 or 5 bucks just in this drainage. And I'm like, holy smokes! Like, why are these deer down in here? Well, earlier in the year, I was hunting in South Dakota for mule deer, and they're in a massive drought out there.
Mm-hmm.
And similar situation, all these deer were in the ditches, and I was talking with the guide and everything. He's like, yeah, that's the highest moisture content they can find. So I was like, oh, based off that knowledge, these deer are probably doing something similar. And so I went off that information and hung a set October 26th, something like that, hung a brand new set on this point overlooking this, real low lying area that they planted in alfalfa, and hunted it the next evening, and had this encounter with this 4-year-old buck, split 2 buck. And honestly, like, I'm very surprised I passed him.
Yeah.
But the only reason I did was because this other deer was there.
And he was there, yeah.
Yep. And I did learn a lot from this specific 4-year-old, what his patterns were and stuff like that. And then hunted it the next morning and had my first encounter with him.
So what do
He
you?
was actually on.
Well, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
What do you? So what do you think? What you're talking about? What you learned in South Dakota? What do you think that the formula or whatever you want to say you learned about this? So what do you? So water? Do you think it's wet down in there? They had some water in the lower area. Or is it because they're out of the wind? What? I mean, why would they be down there? You think?
I was thinking they were more down there because how the field lies, it's more of it kind of drains all into that valley.
Right.
And I'm assuming that's where there's more moisture, and it might get a little bit better shade.
Right.
And with it being so dry, it's probably more palatable than the alfalfa on the hilltops. It's a lot more dry and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do find that interesting. I've never really thought about that, but that is true. I've thought about my other places encounters I've had with deer, and that is kind of aligns with that. That's where they come out of. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. So I had that first encounter with him. It was honestly kind of a fluke that I seen him. I was looking at, there's like these 2 tufts of grass to the north of me. I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like 2 deer. And I'm looking at it, and like probably 200-300 yards behind it, I just see a rack. And I ended up filming him. It's kind of a grainy video, but I was filming it with my main camera, and you can just see his frame, and I'm like, yep, that's him.
Yeah.
So going from there, I had to work that whole week. And the following weekend, I'm like, here's my game plan. I'm going to go sit there again, see if I have another encounter. Well, sure enough, had the right wind and had another encounter with him. He came from the north, but he was probably about 140 yards at this time. And he kind of works his way through that alfalfa, and just to the north of me, there's some cut corn they had just cut that week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what all those deer I was watching they were doing. They were all coming out, hitting that alfalfa first, and then they were all going to that cut corn at night. And so as soon as he did that, I was filming him, and he kind of crested the hill and was going to kind of go over the top of the hill. And I had probably about 25, 30 minutes of shooting light left, but my gut feeling was I just needed to get down and get out before he works his way this way, and he's right here at, dark, and I can't move, I can't get down, that kind of thing. And honestly, it's a good thing I did, because I left, and an hour later he comes walking the same path that I come walking out. And so that was like a perfect move on my part.
He's out of there while you could, yeah.
Yep, got out of there while I could. I knew he wouldn't smell me, see me, that kind of thing. And next morning, had a north wind, so I couldn't hunt that specific stand. I can only hunt that stand with more of any east wind, or I could hunt it with the north or south if I knew where he bedded.
Right.
So with a north wind, I'm hunting on the south side of this property. There's this property. It's all just pasture ground. There's cows in it, everything. And there's one lone tree that I have a stand in. And I'm like, I'm going to go hunt that and see if I could just see him or something like that. And I knew the wind wasn't great for me to hunt a different stand on that piece. So I was like, it's like a 2-3 mile an hour wind. I was like, that's most of the time I won't hunt if there's no wind. But I was going to play my thermals as well. So hunted with the north wind. My thermals are still pulling it down the hill. Mm-hmm. And I had an encounter with that split 2-buck again. He came to 25 yards, and I was like, I was going to do it if he gave me a good shot. And he ended up kind of quartering away and kind of bumping this doe. And it was probably a good thing I didn't, because probably about 5-10 minutes later, I looked to my right, and he's out in this bean field dogging this doe.
Oh man!
And this is just the next morning, from I seen him the night before, and he's bumping her around. I'm videoing it, that kind of thing, and he's out there for a couple minutes, that kind of thing, and then he goes back into the timber. And I assume, from what I've learned from that split 2-buck and other deer as well, is they're all going to bed down in this small block of timber and then hit that alfalfa and then go to cut corn.
Right.
So with that newfound knowledge, I went in early to the north side of the property where that stand is I had the other 2 encounters with. And assuming he was coming from the south, from where he bedded, I had an east wind, which is kind of weird. We've had so many east winds this year, but we have.
Yeah, way down here too. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just straight northeast every evening, it seems like. But
yeah, it was a northeast, and I was like, yep, it gives him a little bit of something, but it helps me out a lot.
Right.
So I go and hunt that stand in the evening, and as soon as I get up there, there's already does out in the alfalfa, and they're kind of feeding a little bit, and then does just start piling out. Like there's probably 12 does that come out first, and then this smaller buck comes out and just scatters the whole field, chasing them, at all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome, like just watching all the deer and everything like that. And probably a good thing that buck scattered all those deer because they ran back in the woods. But I had off to my weak side, I had like two spikes probably, and they were with this doe, kind of just messing with her, nothing too major. And I'm watching these deer out in the field, and then I look back over, and he's standing there like 30 yards.
Oh wow!
Like staring in my he's staring in my general direction, but like past me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm freaking out, like trying to turn cameras on, stuff like that, turn my GoPro on, turn my regular camera on, and I grab my bow. I was like, I know he's at 30. If he turns, like, I got him.
Right.
But he ended up turning to my left to go towards the alfalfa field, bumping that doe that was with those 2 spikes. And he bumps her out, and he was probably about 90 yards, something like that, kind of dogging her around. Ends up pushing her back into the woods. And then probably about a minute later, he comes popping back out, and there's this one lone doe left in the field. And he sees her, and he's beelining for her.
Right.
So I was sitting there ranging him. He initially was at 90, then he was at 70, and then he was at 60. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And he comes in. There's like this distinct line where they sprayed the alfalfa for weeds, and the weeds and the alfalfa, there's a line, and I ranged it, and it was 51 yards. And I'm like, okay. And at the time, you can actually hear in my video, you can hear dogs barking and people talking and them mowing grass. Like this property butts right up to the neighbor, and his house is right on the line.
Right.
And I don't know if they could or not, but if they were outside, they definitely could have seen this deer just standing there.
Golly, man, ain't that crazy?
Yeah, and it's crazy because like these dogs are barking, and these deer just they're used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
It was kind of amazing. He's coming in, and he's just standing there. All these dogs are barking, these people are talking, and he's standing there I ranged him at 51, and this doe's off to our left, and I was like, this doe's further out. This is probably the best opportunity I'm gonna get.
All right.
And over the summer, I had been practicing with my bow. I've been shooting 80, 90 yards, just practicing. I would never shoot a deer that far.
Right.
But got me, confident at that 50 mark. So ended up drawing back, and it was so hard to try to calm myself down. I was shaking. Had this encounter with this deer, that kind of thing, and I was like, this is the biggest buck of my life, and I'm trying not to freak out.
And
I've been here before, don't mess it up, man. Kind of thing.
Whew. Yeah, I know. Is
Yeah.
this the video that I saw on social? Is this that evening?
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean that just got me worked up just
That's
watching
all
that
same
video.
line.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, like this deer came out extremely early, so this was just before time change.
Yeah.
And he came out, and it was probably 4:50 to 5 o'clock, something like that. And so I had a good hour 15 of probably shooting light left, whatever it was at the time. And broad daylight, like he comes out and he gives me this broadside shot at 51 yards. And I turn, have all my cameras on, that kind of thing, and I'm trying to make sure. I'm freaking out because I'm trying to, make sure everything's right. I'm trying to self-film this.
That's hard.
And I draw back, and I was checking all my pre-shot checks, but I didn't check one thing, and that was my grip. And I was gripping my bow I was gripping my bow. I was just trying not to shake, that kind of thing. And I ended up torquing my bow, and I shot him really far back, like really low and really far back. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like horrible shot. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. He runs off. He's standing in the woods, and he's like, doesn't know what hit him, like kind of thing. And he's, you can tell he just stands there. He knows he's been hit. And sit there, watch him, and he, kind of walks off, but not really, like, he's kind of looks disoriented kind of thing. So I called some of my buddies and, sent them the film and stuff like that. And we all decided that it was best just to whitetail dart, get down, and call in a dog tomorrow.
Right.
And it's a good thing I did because we came in with the dog the next day. Dog picked up the track right away, and dog found him within 250, 300 yards.
Wow.
But he had probably 8 to 10 beds all in this 30-yard circle. He was hurting pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
if you'd have trailed him, you'd have definitely pushed him. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have definitely pushed him. And with it being
call.
such a small track, he would have definitely been on someone else's property, and who knows if I would have been able to recover him or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I got extremely lucky in that regard. I mean, you can practice all you want, and all that sort of thing, and
It's gonna
you put
happen, dude. I
a
mean,
live animal
yeah. When you
in front of you, and
yeah,
yeah,
especially of that caliber, you shooting a bow and string. Yeah,
unfortunately it happens.
yeah, it does.
So
So you recovered him. Tell us a little bit about it. I
yep,
know you was pumped. I mean, my gosh, I can't. So this is obviously your biggest deer ever. I would assume
yeah,
by
yeah.
far. Yeah,
So this is my biggest deer ever, biggest deer with a bow, everything.
yeah,
Most history, and it was kind of funny. The guys with the dog, they were kind of messing with me.
yeah.
The guy with the dog had already found it, and I was with the other guy, and he's like, "Yeah, we found blood." I'm like, "Okay, good deal." And he's like, "Oh, just jumped him up." I'm like, "Oh no,"
Oh god.
he's flanking me at this time, and we're in there, we're looking at his beds and stuff. He's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "Well, we can keep pushing." He said, "But this deer's probably long gone." And I'm just like, my heart's in my shoes. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, of course.
Yeah.
And we go walk like 10 more yards and he's just laying there. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, like emotions were wild.
oh
Like
my
it
God.
was kind of
Yes.
surreal. You know, been chasing this deer this was going on the 4th year of pictures of him and 3 sets of his sheds and everything. And it all came down and like, this is the moment like I had been waiting for. And yeah, it was just remarkable to be able to walk up on that deer. And honestly, God bless that I'm even able to hunt a deer of that caliber.
Totally, dude.
Most people don't ever see a deer of that size,
Mm-hmm.
let alone kill it. So I'm very, very fortunate that I was able to, you know,
Look,
harvest that
that
animal.
age too, man. I mean, that's you said six,
Yeah,
7 year
yeah,
old deer. Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
yeah. I think he was
Congratulations.
6.5.
That is so
Mhm.
freaking awesome, man. I'm pumped for you. It's almost like I'm
Yeah,
there when you're telling the story. It's like, and especially with me seeing that video, and we'll overlay that of the as the podcast plays. But I mean, that's unbelievable. Congratulations, dude. So pumped for you,
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
man. Well, anything else you want to talk about on this? Anything else you want to kind of bring up that might have helped you take this deer, or anything special thing that the way you hung and set, way you
I,
developed the
I
property, or
I would say a lot of it is just, like we said earlier, don't rely on cameras.
yeah,
If he's there, go hunt him.
totally.
But definitely, I would say play it smart and like me hunting kind of from afar and kind of trying to lay eyes on him.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely helped, give me some information on this animal. Um, and I would say oftentimes me and my buddy always joke about this. We always overthink it.
Yeah,
You know, if you have past encounters or years of history, kind of put that into play as well. But ultimately, go on what you're learning at the time.
totally. I
Um,
I can
and
agree to that.
I like to give the deer a little bit of an advantage, with the wind. I don't like it to be completely in my favor, because they're more likely to wind check that area and hopefully catch them before they're going through that wind, or if you can base it off information like I had in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I could have hunted that with a different wind that I wouldn't have suspected before. Before I was hunting him and he was to the north of me and I couldn't hunt a south wind.
Right.
But finding out he was to the south of me, I could have hunted it with the south wind, that sort of deal. Um, so it's all, kind of dependent on, where the deer's at, if you do know. But, like I said, that one morning, it was like a 2-mile-an-hour wind, and I wasn't going to get in there and, just let my scent just sit there, or, my thermals kind of draw that, downhill or whatever to him. So I opted, kind of stay further away, and sure enough, I got, the information that I needed.
Right. For sure. Playing it smart. I mean, and
And
you get one shot at a deer like this, man. I mean, that's people say that all the time, but that is so
right,
true, dude. It is so true. Especially on 40 acres. I mean, you bump him wrong, he's off. He's on somebody else,
yeah,
and you're bouncing another piece of property trying to get him. So, but no, dude, that is awesome.
yep,
I'm so happy for you, Pump. Hell of a deer, dude. Hell of a deer. 194
I
inches.
appreciate it.
Golly. So tell us a little bit about your company, though, which you work. So you manage these. I'd just like to add that, because if anybody's in your area and they'd like
Yep.
to help, use you to help manage their property, how do they go about doing that? And I can link that in the description But what's the name of your company and what all do you do?
Yeah, so I work for this company, and it's the name of the company is Wildlife Management Trees, and
Okay.
we're both based out of Central Illinois, and we travel all over. We go to northern Missouri, Iowa, um, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois. We're all over, kind of looking at these farms and developing them and making a game plan with the landowner, seeing what they're wanting to accomplish, and then kind of go from there. We help them do like government cost share programs and stuff like that to help pay for the work that we are doing.
Right.
So it's not directly coming out of the pocket of the landowner. So yeah, I kind of do that kind of thing. And
So y'all are kind of
yeah,
start to finish management of it. I mean,
yeah,
you're helping, you know, add, food source, I guess CRP, helping get that established
yep,
by government. Stand placement, any
yep,
pinch points, bringing the funnel the deer into a central
yep.
location.
We do consultation. We do timber harvest. We do invasive removal. We're doing it all. I mean, we have some pretty big clients in Iowa, and we're going up to Iowa every spring. Hauling up equipment up there, planting food plots, and that sort of thing. So
Sweet.
yeah, I mean, we'll travel up to 7 hours from where we're at. Kind of doing whatever we need to do and that sort of thing.
Oh, good deal, Dave. Well, I'll link that in the description. That way they can kind of hook up with you and maybe help, any management you can do in the future for anybody else. So, but dude, I
Yeah,
greatly appreciate you getting on today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi, and I mean that's part of it, just doing this thing
yep.
virtually. So, but man, we greatly appreciate your time. Hell of a deer, like I said, 194 inches. I hope you'll top that, but that's going to be hard to top. But man,
That's gonna be a tough one
yeah,
for
it's going to be
sure.
very tough. But Mason, can't thank you enough for getting on today. That concludes another Big Buck Blueprint podcast. We appreciate y'all for watching. Tune in. We got plenty more coming to you.